Ramadan. So very much on this home straight, isn't it? We'll talk about many things, including aviation safety in South Africa. How safe are our aircrafts when you are flying? We'll get an update on that bus accident between Makkah and Medina, where at least about, I think, 6 people have died. Sadly so. There's also an update on the French election that matters to immigrants and people of Muslim persuasion as well. We'll chat to Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman about the fact that so many people want to push their money to give to the givers. There's a trust deficit in the country, but not when it comes to give to the givers. So we'll talk about that too. And Catherine Constantinidis featured in the How Does She Champion South Africa. All of that coming up. But we will chat to Snowy Khoza. She comes up first, talking about safety, not so much the airwaves, safety in the air with regard to our airlines. That coming up in a moment. Okay.
Or iftar. This Ramadan, join Africa Muslims Agency to provide meals to the fasting for 100 Rand a day, a food hamper for 1,500 Rand, or feed a village for 15,000 Rand per day. Imagine a reward for each act of charity in these last 10 nights of Ramadan. Donate today. Call AMA on 011-834-8685 or donate online. Africa Muslims Agency, commemorating 35 years of empowering, educating, inspiring.
Spread the sunshine and make mealtimes sunshine delicious. Sunshine Dean, the versatile margarine and fat spread that is perfect for spreading, baking, and cooking. Need inspiration? Visit nowwecooking.co.za.
The global wheat market is in turmoil and prices have risen rapidly. This places the most vulnerable Syrians at greater risk of hunger and food insecurity. Sponsor a ton of flour at just 7,500 Rand and help ensure displaced Syrian families get their daily bread. Donate flour for Syria online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
World-class financial services only at SACAA Global, your financial partner. If you are looking for Islamic, Sharia, and ethical financial products, look no further. SACAA Global offers a wide range of financial service offerings from short-term to life and investments. A full-service center with all financial requirements under one brand. Our highly skilled and experienced consultants are ready to help protect your financial future. Contact us on 041 001 0184 or visit our website on www.sapphireglobalfs.com. Sapphire Global is an authorized financial services provider.
SACAA has the power to end extreme poverty. If the whole world gave SACAA, it could end extreme poverty many times over. Islamic Relief has been distributing SACAA for over 38 years. Our SACAA policy complies with strict Sharia guidelines. It's endorsed by qualified scholars, and it only goes to eligible rights holders. So, harness the power of your SACAA with Islamic Relief.
Are you looking for a cross-border road transport company that is committed in achieving high safety standards, who is fast and efficient, and also excellent customer service? Gardi Global specializes in cross-border transport from South Africa to Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Malawi. Gardi Global, situated at 10 Daniel Road, Bend Road, Johannesburg. For inquiries, contact our trained staff on 011-614-3108 or email info@gardiglobal.co.za. Safe, long haul into Africa is our business. Gardi Global Transport.
It's been a household name for years. It's been an important ingredient in South African kitchens, and it's been an affordable, healthy choice for your family. Helios. First our pure sunflower cooking oil, and now introducing Helios margarines and spreads. Following the same traditions and tastes you've grown to love and trust from Helios. Fortified with vitamins A, D, and E, also rich in omega-3 and 6 essential fatty acids for a healthy eating lifestyle. Helios margarine and spreads. Available now at all leading South African supermarkets. Helios margarine. The tradition lives on.
This is the Ashraf Garda Show, 8 to 10 a.m., and you're listening to Salam Media.
So certainly from your point of view, but besides listening, you can engage and you engage via WhatsApp 061 766 0355. That's text and voice notes. And also you can post comments directly below any of the Salam Media social media posts around the issues. And of course, you can tag me directly on any of those, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. If I left anything out, you certainly can do that. The show itself is brought to you by Africa Muslims Agency. Imagine a world where every family has food for suhoor and iftar in Ramadan. You can call AMA on 010-0722-262. Right, let's get to the big picture. We do this every day. By the way, we'll have a big picture into youth activism on Freedom Day. So listen out for that on Wednesday. Looking forward to that conversation. I think Musi Maimani comes up tomorrow. Probably will. Yeah, so we have Musi Maimani as part of the big picture tomorrow. But today it's about how safe are our airspaces, not airwaves. This is the airwaves, the airspaces, particularly around flights, right? And we thought, let's talk about that, get the big picture into that with the Director of Civil Aviation, Poppy Khoza. Poppy, appreciate your time as always. Thanks for joining me.
Good morning, Ashraf, and thanks for the invitation.
Well, I'm glad we could finally have this conversation, right? So here's the thing. Here's the broad question to you, right? How safe is South Africa's airspace, particularly when it comes to the aircrafts that go out in the air?
Ashraf, South Africa has a remarkable record, I'm sure, as you know, that for the past, I would say, 30 years, South Africa has not suffered an air crash on its soil. And of course, this is a record that the likes of the Civil Aviation Authority and the government and the industry would want to guard, with jealousy. And therefore, as we speak, aircraft are moving up and down from one destination to another. And we go through the year without, having an air crash. So I think it is a testimony that we do have a robust civil aviation system in place in South Africa. And we've been doing so for so many years. Of course,
well, interesting you say robust, and I'll talk about some of the experiences of recent times, right? When you say robust, is that because organizations like yourself, the South African Civil Aviation Authority, plays a role, and if so, what role does it play to ensure that things are robust, there's sufficient checklists, and things therefore are safe for a commuter like myself?
So the Civil Aviation Authority, as the regulatory authority, of course, is responsible to set standards, but also to ensure that there is compliance. So that alone, sets the tone in terms of, the industry compliance, not only to our regulations, because as a country, we are also required to comply with the international standards. And therefore, the whole system from the regulatory side of things to the industry compliance in terms of ensuring that they implement, these standards in the manner that is required, it does, in fact, ensure that, we do have a system that works.
And I take it the South African Civil Aviation Authority works independently from the aircrafts, independent from the airports. Does it also work independently of the Department of Transport and government itself?
The Civil Aviation Authority was established in terms of the Act. So it is a juristic person. It is a public entity, which is completely independent in its function. But of course, it is a creature of statute. It reports to government because it is an agency of government. But in terms of its function, it does so independently from anything else. And I think the reason why, the entire civil aviation community globally is structured in that manner is so to preserve the civil aviation authorities to be independent and only focus their attention on things that matter. And I'm talking about passenger lives, safety, security, ensuring that, all our passengers who trust and use the system on an ongoing basis, they do so with a degree of certainty that there will be no incidents.
Well, I suppose, you just made the point. People are flying as we talk right now. I want to be in a situation, if I'm flying on any aircraft, doesn't matter which one and which brand and which livery, that at least that there's been regulations to ensure they are safe. Right now, that doesn't apply to problems like trains, which is another conversation, to being on the road with taxis, to commuters with bottles on the road. That's a different conversation that I know is not yours, right? Therefore, maybe take me through, typically what are the 4-5, daily checklist that the Civil Aviation Authority puts in place that ensures that only on that basis can an aircraft take to the air?
The system is very complex, whether you're talking about, the airport infrastructure, the air navigation system, the operation of the aircraft itself, and then the operation of the aircraft. So all those things put together, that's what the Civil Aviation Authority would be looking at. We've now introduced the issue of environmental protection because, of course, the climate change issues, they're right at our doorstep and we need to deal with them. Civil aviation is heavily reliant on data from South African weather services, reliant on good weather in order to navigate and fly to destinations safely. And that is one of the functions which the Department of Transport has given to the regulatory authority to look after, not to take over the responsibilities of weather, from the DFFEs and so on, but just to specifically have that close collaboration between ourselves and weather services, which has been there for quite some time. But there are also newly established standards in terms of environmental protection, which is meant for civil aviation. And that is what we are also looking after now.
Okay, now, and I think the issues of global warming is a big issue. I'm very aware of it. We've had conversations about it on the cloud debate that I hosted, including with Professor Chiliti Marawala as well, about that. Right. Let's go back to what happened in March, in that first or second week of March, regarding flights being grounded, because that for most people, I would think the public doesn't even know who the Civil Aviation Authority is, and they really don't care, right? Unless it impacts them directly. And suddenly, in that period, when people were wondering why their flights were being grounded, and the levels of irritation and discomfort, but central to all of that was your organization's authority to ground flights. So what happened there, and what are the big lessons to learn from that?
The events of March were not the first. I'm sure you would know that the Civil Aviation Authority has taken similar actions in the past. And ours is plain and simple. If you are not safe to fly at that point in time, we cannot allow those operations to happen. And that is because, again, we do want to make sure that when that operator operates, it does so within the confines of the regulatory standards, and it does so within a safety environment. And so from time to time, we may have, grounding issues, which, come, of course, at a huge inconvenience to passengers. But as the saying goes, I would rather be inconvenienced than not to make it to the final destination. So technically, when we have some indication that there are big safety issues that cannot be allowed to continue, as a last resort, we would take that drastic action of either suspending the license, grounding the aircraft, whatever the action will be. But it is all done in the name of ensuring that you, as the passenger, depart and arrive at your destination safely.
And when that happened in particular, because it is very topical with British Airways comment. There's the discomfort, as I mentioned, but what is the reaction from the airline company? How did they respond, and how does that happen typically in terms of what happens next?
For us to get to that point where we take that enforcement action, we would have been in conversation with the operator. So we don't wake up and ground aircraft. It is a process that leads up to, that grounding. The airline is in fact given a lot of time, to correct whatever that we are raising. And if they're unable to correct it within the time frames prescribed, then an action, of course, would have to be taken. Typical example, there were those incidents as we know them now, which some of them played out in the media when people were saying, but we don't think we are safe, and so on and so on. Civil Aviation Authority, of course, when we hear that there could be some issues, or if we see that there could be, an escalation of incidents, we cannot fold our arms and not do anything. We follow up, we engage with an operator. It takes a good few days before we can arrive, at that decision. So that decision is not single-handedly taken by, the authority without the operator knowing. It is unfortunate that when we finally pull the plug, one would have expected that maybe the airline would have started to communicate because they would have known in advance of what is coming.
Absolutely. And therefore, I mean, when they don't do that and the discomfort comes up, how does then the aircraft carrier, what's the level of communication with you at that point in time when the plug has been pulled? Like, they obviously want to go on the air or in the air as soon as possible, naturally, right?
Yes. So the conversation continues, and we also do give guidance in terms of how compliance must be achieved, and so on, until such time that they fully demonstrate that which was deficient in their processes has been duly closed. Our inspectors will go back and verify, and if things are good, then we uplift the suspension and they're good to go. They can continue operating.
I must think that you, and I understand you're doing your job well, and your entire organization is doing it, and that's why your track record has been so impressive. But I can just imagine the pressure you must be under from people, from the airlines, of course, but also from the public. Like, goodness, man, they've just messed up my entire period. So you're well aware of the commercial implications, and you're well aware of the level of discomfort in terms of flights being changed and cancelled and grounded. Obviously, you're going to be honourable in dealing with it, but give us an insight into how you manage that pressure, that noise coming out from the public.
So the noise will be there, but I must say that the noise has divergent views. Others, they really appreciate the fact that there is a regulatory authority who is watching and ensuring that things are done properly. Of course, others that will be inconvenienced. They would feel, some would say, maybe SACAA, you're heavy-handed, or whatever the case. But of course, we have to do our job without fear or favor. We cannot, do our job, being emotional about it. It's about doing the right thing, because this is it's a technical environment, and it's either you have it or you don't. If you don't, we can't allow you to continue operating. And if you've got your systems, in order, then you should not have a problem. Which is why the conversation that we're having, even on Friday during the National Aviation Conference with the captains of the industry experts, and some government departments, the message centered around ensuring that even as we recover from the pandemic, we need to make sure that we have a balance between recovery commercially, as well as preserving aviation safety and security, because there can be no sustainability of any airline if aviation safety is neglected. And therefore, our message is plain and simple: comply or don't fly.
And in so many organizations, whether it's something trivial like a sport like football or rugby, to something more important like aviation, or government, for example, the person who leads the organization has a massive role to play to create the type of ethos and the level of minimum requirements and the level of excellence required to ensure it functions. So give us an insight, if you can, into how you ensure that things work out from where you sit all the way down to the bottom.
I always say our safeguards are the laws, the regulatory framework that we operate within. So really, whether we talk corporate governance, we just have to make sure if there's a Public Finance Management Act, National Treasury regulations that must be complied with, we have no choice. We have to comply. From an aviation technical side of things, we have civil aviation regulations, we have an act, we have the regulations, and plain and simple, let's comply and let's make sure that we follow things accordingly. Because if we don't, then we start, coming up with tea time rules. This is applicable to this operator, it's not applicable to that operator. It becomes a mess. And therefore consistency, but staying true to what we have to do, staying true to the mandate of the Civil Aviation Authority, that is a good enough a safeguard for us to ensure that we do things right.
Yeah. Now, having said that, I picked up a report, I think, referencing the Civil Aviation Authority once again, talking about your warning of an increase in incidents or plane crashes in South Africa. I mean, how accurate is that report? I mean, because that is scary.
So I don't know which letter you would be referring to. Is it the one that I wrote to the industry, or is it?
Well, I mean, the one I've got, it's not from you directly, but it just talks about the Civil Aviation Authority is growing increasingly concerned about the number of safety incidents and accidents in the country. And I think it also talks about not just the big commercial airlines, but certainly some of the smaller ones as well. But perhaps maybe to answer that, I mean, give me your thoughts. Is there a cause for concern? Because there's been certainly more flights grounded since that early March issue, right?
So there is a letter that I wrote to the captains of the industry, sounding alarm bells, to say we are acutely aware of the fact that we are starting to recover from the pandemic. Things have been on the standstill. There had been, slow growth and so on, and things are really picking up, especially from, the latter part of 2021 to now. But let's make sure that, everything is done accordingly. The recovery must not be, it must not neglect, certain imperatives. So I think it must have been the letter that I had written to the captains of the industry saying, but we are seeing an escalation of safety incidents, whether it is at and backs, because, there is a gear landing that was not retracting, and or any other, issues that we would have picked up. And that was really to say, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's make sure that we do things the correct way. Let's make sure that as we grow, if you had downscaled or downsized your operations, don't focus too much on growth, and then you don't have, the matching capacity to ensure that, your growth and your staff complement, they are in balance. So that's really, the message behind it.
But I mean, directly, are you concerned about potential increase in incidents and therefore plane crashes in our country?
Absolutely, especially around February and March, there was a concern. Things have really gone down now, and that is because I think the air operators are realizing that, if we don't do things right, the Civil Aviation Authority will definitely take an enforcement action. And, the industry that we work with, they fully understand. Grounding, taking away of the license, really, it is a last resort, and it's not desirable, not for us as the regulatory authority, but not for the operators themselves. It is funny because, Ashraf, the Civil Aviation Authority, when a grounding happens, we also get impacted negatively because we draw our financial resources from, the passenger safety charge. So we could not be reckless to an extent that, we sabotage, our existence as well. And it really does become a last resort. It's not something that we wake up to, the next day and there's a grounding.
Well, all the more it begs that question: how do you keep on the straight and narrow when when the airlines flying is a form of revenue for you, but if you ground them, you lose that. But you also want to ensure that you do your job. I mean, how do you keep to that straight and narrow?
Our mandate is very simple: aviation safety and security. Everything else follows.
Do you, I mean, we're chatting to Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman later on from Gift to the Givers about how so many people want to put their money to give to the givers because of a trust deficit with government, for example, right? I'm not going to ask you to answer that, but the more important one is, if you're getting it right, and you and I both know there are so many aspects of South African life at the moment where we're getting it wrong, from our public hospitals to our education. I mentioned potholes earlier. I can go through so many, right? What's your advice then in terms of, like, how is it that you are able to get this right, so technical, and we can't get other things right, which is a lot more basic, and therefore systems and infrastructures collapsing?
As I said earlier, our safeguard is the law. Our mandate, we don't take it for granted because we understand, the implication in an event that we don't do things right. The last thing that I always say to my team, the last thing we want to deal with is an aircraft accident happening somewhere, and we as the Civil Aviation Authority are called to come and give account as to why did we not do certain things. So if all of us were to really work around ensuring that each one of us do our bit in terms of honoring the mandate that we've been given by the government and the people of this country, we would have done our job. Because even if there is an air crash, an accident must really be an accident. It mustn't be out of negligence. And I think that's really what we do. That's the message, across the board, that we must do everything in our power to ensure that we fully comply with the national legislation, but we equally comply with the Civil Aviation Act, which is really our Bible that gives us the parameters, to operate in a manner that is.
But just to end on that part, I mean, I think it's well said from your side, and then you following the mandate. But the reality is, so many other organizations are not following the mandate, right? So therefore, what's your advice to them? Because they have their own mandates, and they're not executing on it. What's your advice, therefore, to them?
I'm not sure if I'm qualified enough, but let's do our best. When you are given a task, do it in the manner that is expected of you. Otherwise, give it to somebody else to do it.
I think it's more leadership advice as opposed to the technical aspects. I mean, it comes back to your leadership and those that lead and champion great causes within your organization, isn't it?
To me, it boils down to integrity. If all of us were to do our things, with integrity, that is it.
Quite simple. Just it's all about integrity. Poppy Khoza, great chatting to you. Thanks for your time, and thanks for these insights. I think it gives us a better understanding into the functioning of the Civil Aviation Authority and this watchdog that on our behalf is ensuring that certainly when the airspace that we're in is as safe as absolutely can be. So I think that's very honourable, and long may that continue. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ashraf.
Thank you. We're talking about integrity. We'll talk about the gift of the givers, chatting to Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman in a moment.